Hello drama lovers, welcome back to my channel. Breaking news. When news broke that Wang Yibo had been rushed to the hospital, the world seemed to stop breathing. Fans flooded timelines with tears and prayers, but what none of them expected was the image that would break the internet that night. Because standing by his side, eyes red and voice trembling, was Xiao Zhan, refusing to leave him, even when everyone else did. It started as just another exhausting filming day. The set lights burned bright. The crowd outside screamed with endless energy. Wang Yibo, ever the perfectionist, pushed himself beyond limits, determined to deliver every scene flawlessly. That's who he was. Quiet, disciplined, the kind of artist who doesn't stop until his heart does. But that evening, something was different. A faint tremor ran through his hands. His vision blurred, and before anyone could react, Yibo collapsed mid-step. Cameras fell silent. Crew members shouted his name, panic slicing through the air like broken glass. Within minutes, he was rushed into an ambulance. Sirens screamed through the soul night, a sound that millions would later replay in their minds, over and over again. And somewhere across the city, Xiao Zhan got the call. He didn't think. He didn't ask. He just ran. When he arrived at the hospital, flashes of memory hit him: the laughter they shared on the untamed set, the quiet glances that said more than words ever could, the bond that had survived rumors, hate, and distance. To the world, they were just co-stars. But to each other, they were home. Inside the sterile hospital hallway, Xiao Zhan's hands trembled as he saw Yibo lying unconscious, oxygen mask, 4 lines, the faint beeping of the monitor echoing in the stillness. And for the first time in years, Xiao Zhan broke down. His tears fell silently as he whispered, "You promised we'd ride together again. Don't you dare break it now." The nurses tried to comfort him, but he wouldn't move. He sat there for hours, unmoving, his head resting against the edge of Yibo's bed. Every flicker of the heart monitor became a prayer. And that's when fans began to gather outside the hospital. Candles, banners, and handwritten letters lined the street. "Stay strong, Yibo. We believe in you. Zhanyi forever." The scene looked like something straight out of a drama, only this time, it was heartbreakingly real. As the night deepened, Xiao Zhan's exhaustion began to show. He hadn't eaten, hadn't slept, his entire world had narrowed to that small hospital room. The doctors came and went, their faces unreadable. Every whisper felt like a threat. Every silence, a storm. But then, a faint movement. Yibo's fingers twitched. Xiao Zhan froze, disbelief flooding his face. He leaned closer, whispering, "Yibo, it's me. Can you hear me?" And then, ever so slightly, Yibo's lips curved upward. A weak, almost invisible smile. But it was enough to shatter the fear that had held the world hostage. Tears fell again, but this time, they carried relief. The next morning, a photo began to circulate online. A leaked image, blurry, dimly lit, showing Xiao Zhan still seated by Yibo's bedside, holding his hand. No words, no captions. Just raw emotion. Within hours, hashtags like "Get Well Soon Yibo" and "Xiao Zhan by his side" dominated global trends. Fans across continents began sharing messages, artwork, and videos. It was more than fandom at that point, it was a collective heartbeat. In that single image, fans saw everything: loyalty, love, and the unspoken truth between two souls who had endured storms together. But fame has a cruel way of turning compassion into chaos. Tabloids spun headlines. Rumors flared. Journalists camped outside, hungry for a story. Some accused them of faking emotions for publicity. Others romanticized it too far. Through it all, Xiao Zhan remained silent. He didn't need to explain what love, platonic or not, looked like. Because sometimes, love doesn't need to fit a label. It simply stays. And behind those hospital doors, away from the cameras, Yibo slowly began to heal, his first words soft but steady. "You were here the whole time." "Always," Xiao Zhan whispered. That exchange, small, almost cinematic, would later become one of the most replayed fan edits in the history of their fandom. Days turned into weeks. Yibo's strength returned, but something had changed between them, something deeper than words. They no longer needed to hide behind interviews or scripted smiles. Every glance now carried weight, every silence warmth. When Yibo was finally discharged, fans lined the streets once again. Xiao Zhan walked beside him, not as a celebrity, but as a brother who had witnessed the edge of loss and refused to let go. The press captured that moment, the faint smile on Yibo's lips, the way their hands brushed as they waved at fans. It wasn't staged. It wasn't rehearsed. It was simply human. In the weeks that followed, both artists went quiet on social media. But that silence only amplified their impact. Fan edits multiplied, music videos were made, and the hospital night became a symbolic story, a reminder that behind the flashing lights, even idols bleed, break, and heal. Months later, during a variety show appearance, Yibo was asked softly by the host, "Was there someone who helped you through the hardest time?" He smiled faintly and said, "Someone who didn't say much, but never left." The audience erupted into applause, but Xiao Zhan, watching from backstage, just smiled quietly. That was their truth. Not for headlines, not for speculation, but for the simple bond of two souls who met in chaos and stayed through the storm. Because in the end, The Untamed wasn't just a drama. It was a prophecy of a connection that would outlive fame, distance, and fear. And maybe, that's what makes their story so unforgettable. It wasn't about the lights, the cameras, or the fame. It was about what happens when the cameras stop rolling. When one friend falls and the other refuses to walk away. When love, in its purest form, becomes an act of courage. Fans still revisit that night, whispering, "Do you remember the hospital story?"